The 7th century transformation of Japan, from Prince Shōtoku to the rise of the Ritsuryō state. In recent years, the term, the 7th century history, has been gaining attention. The 7th century, from the year 601 to 700 CE, marks a 100-year span in Japanese history, bridging the age of Prince Shōtoku and the establishment of the Taisho Code. This same era is often called the Asuka period. Just like the Nara and Heian periods, this name derives from the location of the political center, the imperial capital. In other words, the Asuka period refers to the time when the capital was located in Asuka, from the enthronement of Empress Suiko at Toyora Palace in 592 until Empress Genmei moved the capital to Heijō-kyo in 710. However, here lies an interesting problem. The grand capital of Fujiwara-kyo, built by Empress Jito and later inherited by Emperors Monmu and Genmei, was actually located outside of Asuka proper. Should the Fujiwara-kyo era still be considered part of the Asuka period? It was from this very question that the concept of 7th century history emerged, a new lens through which to view this pivotal age. When we examine this period, several major turning points become apparent. The shift from the Korean-style system to the Chinese-style system, and the formation of Japan's Ritsuryō, legal administrative state. Recent scholarship suggests that in the early 7th century, Japan still relied heavily on Korean administrative models. But with the enactment of the Taisho Code in 701, the nation's system began its full-scale transformation toward the Chinese model. By comparing the Asuka Kiyomihara Code of the late 7th century and the Taisho Code of the early 8th, we can clearly trace the dynamic evolution of Japan's early state structure. During this time, Japan's local governance and bureaucratic system were also taking shape. Wooden tablets excavated from the ruins of Asuka and local government offices reveal a growing administrative network that extended across the archipelago. Turning our gaze westward to Tsukushi, northern Kyushu, we find another unfolding drama. The title, Dazai, of Tsukushi, first appeared in records during the reign of Empress Suiko, and by the mid-7th century, the office of Governor General of Tsukushi had emerged. After Japan's devastating defeat at the Battle of Baekgang in 663, the ancient Dazaifu, Western headquarters, was reorganized into a vital bastion of national defense. The 7th century was thus the age when Japan forged the framework of its nationhood, a time of trial, adaptation, and transformation amid the turbulence of East Asia. By retracing these 100 years, we move closer to understanding the origins of the ancient Dazaifu and the making of the Japanese state. The Battle of Baekgang and the flowering of Asuka culture. The mid-7th century, a time when Japan sought to consolidate itself as a unified nation, saw the greatest naval battle in East Asia, the Battle of Baekgang in 663, between the Japan-Baekje alliance and the Tang-Silla coalition. The conflict began 3 years earlier, when Tang and Silla forces overthrew Baekje, Japan's long-standing ally. The Baekje royal family and nobles fled to Japan, pleading for aid. In response, Japan dispatched a massive expeditionary fleet to restore Baekje, but the campaign ended in tragedy. The Japanese fleet, mostly converted transport ships, faced Tang's large, well-armed warships designed for open-sea combat. After 2 days of fierce fighting, the Japan-Baekje alliance was annihilated. Thousands of Japanese soldiers perished, and Japan's influence on the Korean peninsula came to an abrupt end. This defeat sent shockwaves through the Japanese state. Fearing Tang invasion, the court urgently strengthened its defenses. The Dazaifu was established in Kyushu as a command center. Frontier guards, Sakimori, were stationed along the coasts, and fortifications such as Mizuki and Korean-style mountain castles were constructed across northern Kyushu. Meanwhile, political power shifted. Emperor Tenji relocated the capital to Omi and modeled his government after Tang's legal administrative system. From the ashes of defeat, Japan began to rebuild itself, a struggle that would culminate in the birth of the Ritsuryō state. Behind these political and military transformations, another revolution was underway, a cultural renaissance. The blossoming of Asuka culture. In the early 7th century, under Empress Suiko, Japan experienced the emergence of Asuka culture, a wave of innovation rooted in the sophisticated civilization of China's northern and southern dynasties, transmitted through the Korean peninsula. Baekgang and Ritsuryō acted as intermediaries, absorbing and refining Chinese culture before transmitting it to Japan. Buddhism, Confucianism, medicine, astronomy, architecture, and fine arts all flowed across the sea. In 607, Prince Shōtoku dispatched Ono no Imoko as envoy to the Sui dynasty, not merely as diplomacy, but as a bold cultural expedition to experience civilization at its source. Soon after, scholars such as Takamu no Kuramaro and monks studied in China, bringing back invaluable knowledge that shaped the foundation of Japan's statehood. Thus, the Asuka era marked the moment when Japan ceased to be a passive recipient and began to actively absorb and reinterpret continental culture, and at its spiritual center stood Buddhism. Magnificent temples such as Asuka-dera rose from the plains, filled with Chinese-style statues, paintings, and sacred music. But these temples were not only places of worship, they were expressions of a new Japanese aesthetic. Prince Shōtoku's Buddhist thought transformed Japan's spirituality. The world is false. Only the Buddha is true. Through this philosophy, Buddhism became more than a ritual. It became a way of understanding truth itself. At the same time, Shōtoku's 12-rank cap system and 17-article constitution sought moral harmony and administrative order, uniting religion, ethics, and governance. From defeat and chaos emerged wisdom and spiritual maturity, and the brilliance of Asuka culture stands as the symbol of that rebirth. This legacy would continue into the Hakuho culture and culminate in the establishment of Fujiwara-kyo and the Taiho Code, the dawn of Japan as a full-fledged state within the East Asian world. Prince Shōtoku, the man who shaped the Japanese spirit. There is a famous legend about Prince Shōtoku that he could listen to 10 people speaking at once and understand every word. Whether or not this story is literally true, it beautifully symbolizes who he was, a leader who united many diverse peoples and cultures that had come to Japan from abroad. It has been more than 1,400 years since the prince left this world, yet the spirit he embodied, the foundation of Japan's national character, continues to flow through our culture even today. But who exactly was Prince Shōtoku, and what did he truly accomplish? Let us look back on his remarkable legacy. 1. The 12-level cap rank system. One of Shōtoku's most important reforms was the establishment of the 12-level cap rank system. At that time, Japan faced political pressure from Silla, a powerful and aggressive neighbor on the Korean peninsula. How could Japan maintain internal unity and dignity on the international stage? Shōtoku's answer was to create a merit-based system that promoted capable individuals according to ability and virtue, rather than lineage. Through this reform, he sought to bring order to the nation and to strengthen Japan's standing among other states. 2. The missions to Sui China, Japan's declaration of independence. Shōtoku also sent official envoys to the Sui dynasty of China. This was not merely diplomacy. It was a bold declaration that Japan stood as an independent and equal nation. "We are neither above nor below any other country," his envoys proclaimed. It was around this same time that the title Tenno, Emperor of Heaven, first appeared, a title older even than the name Nihon, Japan, itself. Prince Shōtoku was the first to use this sacred title, establishing the divine dignity of Japan's sovereign. 3. The 17-article Constitution, the ideal of great harmony. Shotoku's 17-article constitution remains one of the most profound moral and political documents in Japanese history. Its first article, "Harmony is to be valued," is famous throughout Japan, but the Constitution teaches far more than harmony. It is a guide to ethical living, responsibility, and self-discipline. When I myself revisited this text, I was struck by its emphasis on diligence and sincerity. Shotoku placed great importance on beginning the day with the morning light. He believed that an orderly morning leads to an orderly mind, a timeless expression of the Japanese spirit of discipline and harmony. 4. The Edict for the Promotion of Buddhism. Prince Shōtoku also issued the Edict for the Promotion of Buddhism, proclaiming that Buddhism would be one of the spiritual pillars of the nation. Revere the three treasures, the Buddha, the law, and the Sangha. This famous phrase, found in the Constitution, laid the foundation for Buddhism's growth in Japan. It was through his efforts that temples flourished, and Buddhist philosophy became a source of moral strength for the people. 5. The Way of the Gods and the Harmony of Faiths. At the same time, Shotoku never abandoned Japan's native spirituality. In his Edict of Self-Reflection, he declared, "The roots of our nation lie in the way of the gods, the path of Shinto." Rather than rejecting the old in favor of the new, he sought a grand harmony between the native Shinto faith and imported Buddhism. This blending, Shinbutsu Shugo, the syncretism of kami and Buddhas, became a uniquely Japanese spiritual ideal, born from Shotoku's vision of coexistence. 6. The compilation of national histories and the unification of culture. Shotoku also devoted himself to scholarship and literature. He compiled or inspired works such as the commentaries on the Three Sutras, the origins of Shitenoji, and historical texts like Tennoki, Koki, and Sendai Kuji Hongi. Through these writings, he wove together Japan's history, faith, and national identity into a single coherent story. At that time, Japan was still a federation of powerful clans. Shotoku transcended these divisions, creating a culture of great harmony, a civilization built on ethics, spirituality, and unity. He was not only a statesman, but also a philosopher and spiritual guide, a figure who gave form to the soul of Japan. The man who became a symbol. Prince Shōtoku is far more than a historical figure. He is the embodiment of the Japanese spirit itself, the eternal teacher who rooted the principle of wa, harmony, in our national consciousness. The Japan we know today, its compassion, its balance, its moral order, all trace their origin back to his vision. And yet, over time, his name has not always been treated with the respect it deserves. There was even a period when Prince Shōtoku disappeared entirely from Japanese textbooks. This sparked widespread protests from educators and citizens, leading to his eventual reinstatement in all middle school history textbooks. Even so, differences remain. Elementary schools continue to use the name Prince Shōtoku, while some middle school texts refer to him as Umayado no Oji, or Umayado no O, his personal name before he was venerated as Shōtoku. A few scholars even argued that Prince Shōtoku was a later invention, a title created long after his death. The debate over his existence. At one point, an extreme theory, the non-existence of Prince Shōtoku, was proposed, claiming he was a myth rather than a real person. Today, however, this theory has been completely discredited. Historians now agree that Prince Shōtoku was indeed a historical figure, so much so that even scholars who once doubted him have since abandoned the argument. The origin of the name Shotoku Taishi. The name Shotoku Taishi first appears about 129 years after his death, in the year 751 CE, within the ancient anthology Kaifuso. Thus, the title was given posthumously during the Nara period. In his lifetime, he was known by names such as Umayado no Oji in the Kojiki and Umayado Toyotomimi no Mikoto in the Nihon Shoki. The modern term Umayado no O Prince Umayato, appeared only recently, first suggested in 1963 by Professor Toyofumi Ogura of Hiroshima University, without historical evidence to support it. In short, Shōtoku Taishi is the name history itself bestowed upon him, a name that reflects his enduring spiritual greatness. Why was his legacy once denied? The denial of his name and legacy stemmed from a post-war intellectual climate that sought to humble Japan's past. To some scholars, the idea of such an extraordinary leader did not fit the narrative of Japan as a backward, ancient state. But over time, this self-deprecating view has faded. Today, it is widely recognized that to deny Shōtoku's existence is far more unnatural than to affirm it. The age of Empress Suiko and Prince Shōtoku. Prince Shōtoku served as regent to Empress Suiko, Japan's 33rd monarch. This was a formative age, when Japan was still shaping its national foundation. From the time of Emperor Jimmu, Japan had unified through agriculture, with rice cultivation providing food security in times of disaster. In Emperor Sujin's era, when plague struck and wiped out 2/3 of the population, ritual purification practices such as tamizu, hand-washing, were introduced, marking the birth of Japan's culture of cleanliness. Under Emperor Nintoku, economic prosperity grew, attracting travelers from abroad, but also new forms of conflict and corruption. During these turbulent centuries, Buddhism arrived from the continent. Traditionally, textbooks say it was officially introduced from Baekgang in the mid-6th century. But modern research suggests that Buddhist ideas had already reached Japan as early as the 1st or 2nd century CE. Thus, the 6th century marked not the arrival, but the official acceptance of Buddhism, known today as the Koden of Buddhism. This event ignited a fierce struggle between two powerful clans, the Soga clan, who embraced Buddhism, and the Mononobe clan, who defended the native Shinto faith. The conflict escalated into civil war, a war that unfolded during the reign of Empress Suiko. After political turmoil and even assassination within the court, Empress Suiko reluctantly accepted the throne to stabilize the nation. But she made one profound decision. I shall be one who knows the affairs of the realm, but the execution of government shall rest with my regent. That regent was Prince Shōtoku. The birth of the Shirasu country. The verb Shirasu in ancient Japanese means to know and to rule through awareness. Japan came to be known as a country ruled by knowing, a Shirasu kuni. The emperor's role was not to wield power, but to see all, know all, and guide with compassion. Political authority was delegated to ministers, but with that authority came moral responsibility. This delicate balance of power and duty formed the foundation of Japanese governance, a system first realized under Empress Suiko and Prince Shōtoku. It was in this era that Japan's spiritual and political ideals took root. From this time forward, Japan would remain a Shirasu country, a nation guided not by domination, but by wisdom and harmony. The legacy of the Japanese spirit. Thus, when we study Prince Shōtoku, we are not merely studying history. We are learning the very spirit of Japan itself. For in his vision of harmony, wisdom, and reverence for all faiths lies the eternal heartbeat of the Japanese nation. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story stirred something within you, we invite you to subscribe, share your thoughts, and walk with us as we continue to uncover hidden threads in the fabric of human history.